Before the video begins, I would like to thank Carl Egil Hannevik for creating this amazing book, Norwegian Military Rifles After 1867. Without the information in this book, this video would be impossible. Let's begin. Welcome back to Nordic Arms and History. Today I'm going to be showing you a very rare rifle that I have in my collection here. This is a model of 1876 Krag-Petersson. Only 975 of these were ever produced for the Norwegian Navy, making this a very rare rifle today. Also, it is incredibly special, being it's the first repeating rifle that the Norwegians ever adopted. In fact, it's one of the earliest repeating rifles adopted at all. Also, this rifle features a falling block mechanism, very similar to the Martini Henry, and it also features a 10-round tube magazine along the bottom of its front handguard. Let's start with its history. The origins of the rifle started in the 1860s as Ole Herman Johannes Krag had started to tinker with the idea of repeating rifles even before his time as inspector at the Kongsberg weapons factory. He had two rifles that he constructed while working in Christiania, also known as Oslo today. Both of these had a falling block mechanism and a tube magazine in the front handguard. However, these used a separate lever to work the falling block action. Based on the other rifles he was working on, we can see that Krag was very productive at this time. In 1869, a commission was created to test two new rifle designs, one from gunsmith Larsen and one from Premierleutnant Krag. 10 of Larsen's rifles and 5 of Krag's were tested. When the results came in 1871, the rolling block had the best accuracy out of the three. Also, over a 2-minute period, the rolling block fired 85 rounds, the Larsen rifle fired 83, and Krag's rifle achieved a mere 60 rounds. The reason for this was the lever. This made the rifle very difficult to fire rapidly. There was further testing of the 5 Krag rifles, however nothing came of this. It was back to the drawing board for Krag. In 1871, a friend of Krag, civil engineer Krag-Petersson, came with a suggestion. Remove the lever actuating the falling block and simplify the whole action. This led to the action you see here today, where the hammer actuates both the falling block and fires the rifle. Krag patented this in 1871 and insisted that the rifle be called the Krag-Petersson. This new design was constructed in 1872 and tested. The rifle performed well. The general armorer at Kongsberg wanted an improved design for further testing. This new rifle was marked C and was submitted for further testing. Many benefits were observed in having such a rifle. Sadly, the director of the Kongsberg weapons factory at the time, Lieutenant Colonel Landmark, was very negative to the rifle, both as a single shot and as a magazine rifle. Luckily, the rifle went to field trials with the Army. In 1875, 30 rifles were produced, all of these based off the Model C rifle, with some minor changes. And also, the magazine rifle was shortened to accommodate for the shorter 12x44 Remington cartridge. The rifles did well in trials, so much so that the Army Command wanted further field trials. The order was given in 1876, but for some reason this was not done. This is where Yarman comes into the picture. The Norwegian-Swedish Rifle Committee held trials for the rifle in 1877 and found the Krag-Petersson to be worse than the Yarman rifle. Krag fought to keep the rifle in the trials, but sadly this was the end for the Army aspirations for the rifle. However, Krag was awarded for pushing the Army to pursue magazine rifles. Even though the Army was not interested in the rifle, the Norwegian Navy was. They had tested the rifle in 1871 and even ordered a couple rifles to test in 1873. In fact, there was already a suggestion in 1874 to adopt the rifle. But there was some internal diplomacy at play here. The ministry was opposed to adopting a rifle without the rifle being adopted by the Army. But the Navy armorer thought on the contrary, as the Navy does not need as many rifles as the Army. The rifle was approved for further adoption in 1876 after some further deliberations, replacing the rolling block conversions of the Kammerlader. 450 rifles were originally planned, but as we know today, 975 were produced. The main production of the rifle happened in two factories, the Carl Gustavs Rifle Factory in Sweden and the Karl Johans Vern in Horten, Norway. Here you can see the production value, including the serial numbers for each year. Now that we know the history of the rifle, let's take a closer look at it and see how this thing works. Here we are, closer up. We'll be starting up at the front of the rifle and working our way back. I've also pulled out this Norwegian rolling block to show you the, in fact, quite similar barrel that these have. In fact, the rear sights on these are identical, and we'll be getting to that here shortly. The first thing you can spot is that the saber bayonet lug is identical. It's just been milled a little bit differently between the two here. You can also see that the front sight blade on the Krag-Petersson is not very angled. It's just a regular front sight blade here. And on the rolling block, you can see it is quite angled. Moving further back to the rifle here, we have the first barrel band here. There is no cleaning rod on this, as the magazine tube is in the way. You can also see that it is just fastened by a leaf spring here. Moving on to the next barrel band, as you can see here, there is the same, of course, spring piece here. And on this one, you can see as well, this is where the sling attachment is. It's just hinged quite simply onto this barrel band here. Going on to the final barrel band, as you can see here, it has no sling attachment and has, again, the same spring mechanism here. There's also the serial number, and on this rifle, it is 663. Here we have the rear sight up close. This model is in fact the exact same as the Norwegian rolling block, and that's because Krag actually designed this rear sight. Krag originally wanted some improvements to the rolling block, but that didn't go through. However, he did in fact design the rear sight here. So this is also known as Krag's rear sight on the Norwegian rolling block as well. If we get up closer here, you can see that the markings are in fact still readable. Here you can see the max range of 1500 meters, but you can also see it goes in increments of 10, and then it goes up further. So you have, of course, you have 20 meters here, 30, 40, and then 50. And then it goes to 60, and then it goes up by 10 there as well. Here I'll also show you the same rear sight on a Norwegian rolling block, as you can see right here. Of course, they are exactly the same. This one I believe you can actually use. The other one here is stuck, so I'll be using this one as an example. But you can see it goes up like so. Each increment up like so. You can get it up like that. And then you can, of course, make it up like so as well. I can't get it further than this right now. Moving to the end of the barrel here, or the start of the barrel, you can see that the rifle's serial number is of course also stamped onto the barrel. And then moving to the receiver is where the fun begins here. Here you can first see the Krag-Petersson marking here. This is on all Krag-Peterssons, even the ones produced in Sweden. In fact, this one is. You can also see the serial number here as well. You can see, of course, some of the screws here. This one retains the main pivot point for the block here as well. You also have these screws down here. That is for the bottom plate. That is the entire trigger mechanism. In fact, let's get to that right now here. As you can see, you have the, of course, sling mount here. A very simple single stage trigger, very stiff. And you can see, of course, on the underside here, you can see that it is a separate plate on the bottom here that actually is bolted or screwed here and here, and this you can just remove afterwards. Also, going on to the other side, here we are on the other side of the rifle. Some more interesting markings on this one. You have the year of manufacture. Mine is made in 1879. You also have the main factory marking here. This one is, of course, the one for Carl Gustaf's rifle factory in Sweden. But you also have a different one that I'll be showing you right here, which is for the Karl Johans Värn Navy base in Horten. Also here, you can see the ammunition cutoff lever. Moving it up actuates a small metal piece that stops the rounds from feeding into the block here. Here we are on top of the rifle here. You can see on the barrel here, you can also see the Carl Gustav marking, as well as an inspector's mark right here. You can see that on the front handguard here, you also have a serial number here, 663, as well as on the side on the stock here as well. On the other side, you have on the front handguard the year of production, as well as the factory marking, and as well factory marking and the year of manufacture there as well. The way the stock is connected to the rifle is through the two tangs on the receiver here, and only a single screw going to the other side here connecting them. That's also the same as the Remington rolling block, and that also means that this rifle has the same issues that can occur with that. In fact, this rifle has a crack beginning at the tang here, which is very common on these rifles. Here we have the stock. As you can see, this is of course screwed in with 2 wood screws into the stock here, and you can see that this is actually metal and not brass, which is what the rolling block used. Very interesting choice of material there, especially as this is a Navy rifle, not a military rifle. Now I'm going to be showing you the most interesting part of this rifle, its action. So to begin, I'm going to be loading a dummy round here. These are 12 by 44 rimmed cartridges. However, these are center fire. The rifle here actually uses a rimmed rimfire cartridge. However, I don't have any of those. So I'll just be very carefully dropping the hammer onto the firing pin so it will not damage the pin in any way. So to begin, we want to put the hammer down from half cock, like so, down to full cock, and then the rest of this movement will actually drop the block as well as push out the extractor here. As you can see, I'm going to push it the rest of the way, and you can see there. At the bottom there, you can see the magazine tube and the extractor here. You can also see the magazine cutoff, like so. And when I push this back up, you'll see that it latches on to this extractor. That's so you can push the next round in and it'll fully go up. Now let's load the rifle with the dummy here. So to start off, we push this down, grab our cartridge here, you can drop it in like so, then you push it in, and then I would raise the block so it doesn't go all the way, as you can see there. Then we raise it all the way up, it'll catch onto this. Then we have our spent shell here, push it there. Now we're going to push it the rest of the way in without holding anything, and the block will shoot up like so. This means the rifle is ready to fire, and you can also see that the firing pin is extruding here, and that's what the hammer will actually strike to fire the rifle. I'm going to carefully push this up so that it doesn't actually damage the firing pin. And we're now ready to do our first reload of the rifle, and it'll really show this repeating action of the rifle. Let's begin. So I'm going to start by pushing this very hard and fast down. It'll extract the round in the chamber, and the next round will fly into the ramp here and get ready to be loaded. Let's begin. There we go. Then I can use this groove to catch onto the next round, push it into the chamber, and then push it the rest of the way in. And there you have it. Now that we've taken a look at the details of the rifle and how the rifle actually works, let's talk about the bayonet. In fact, I don't have any bayonets for my rifle. It's very rare to find one of these Krag-Petersson bayonets, and they're extremely expensive. So finding one is very rare. However, they are almost identical to this, which is a rolling block saber bayonet, which attaches to the side of the rifle onto the latch like so. And of course, the main difference between a rolling block bayonet and a Krag-Petersson one is the location of the serial number. On the rolling block saber bayonets, they are on the side, on the bottom of the blade here, whilst on the Krag-Petersson, they're actually on the soft brass piece right here. The main reason for that, or at least the main theory, is that the bayonets were produced first, or after the fact, then sent to the rifle, and they were then stamped on. So the forming of the serial number is very different between rifle to rifle. I'll be showing you a picture here. And you can see, of course, they're all just 3-digit serial numbers as well, and they vary in shape and size as well. So very interesting and nonetheless. Now let's talk about how I got this rifle here and what I've done to this to preserve it and make it last another 100 years. I purchased this at an auction a couple of years ago, and I was very lucky enough to actually win the auction at a much lower price. I'll show a picture of how it looked like when I bought it. And it was in very poor condition. In fact, it was most likely a wall hanger, and it was full of surface rust. There was no clear steel in sight on this rifle. However, the bore of the rifle was incredibly clean. In fact, it was very sharp, almost like it's never been fired before. So after I purchased it, I oiled up this rifle, and I put it in my storage for a long time, or for a couple months. as I didn't want to do it immediately, and I was wanting to research what was the best way to not restore but to preserve this rifle. And I wanted to remove just the surface rust that was on this, because I could just swipe my finger and I had rust on it. So what I decided to do eventually was to purchase some Hops No. 9 oil and some steel wool, and I used this aught right here when it comes to the fineness of the steel wool. I then very meticulously took the whole rifle apart. I'll be showing you some pictures here while I'm talking about it. And then I very carefully put some oil, and then I rubbed the steel wool onto the parts very carefully, making sure to replace the steel wool very often so it doesn't scratch the rifle up. And in fact, that worked really well, and the rifle cleaned up very nicely. However, there is, of course, you can see there's still patina on the rifle here. You can still see there's markings of the rust. It's not been perfectly removed, but I've removed what was active, and what is left here is just the condition that the rifle is in. I also greased and really nicely cleaned up the inside mechanism here and added some really nice thick grease to make sure that it stays lubricated as well as oiled, so it doesn't rust on the inside. Also on the wood there was some stickers from the shipping, of course from the auction site, because they weren't really used to shipping these kind of weapons, so they kind of taped it haphazardly. So I used some actually in fact some plaster like removal oil or like ointment that you could just carefully use with a Q-tip to remove that, and that worked perfectly fine, and it didn't affect the wood finish at all. After that, I just went over with some just some regular wood oil. I think it was boiled linseed oil, or I just used the regular Hops No. 9 just to lubricate up the oil so it doesn't get any worse. Then of course I put the rifle back together, and that's how it is today. I don't plan to restore this any further other than repairing the crack on the stock here, because I do in fact want to make a video shooting this rifle at some point. I just need to get into the right clubs and get the right connections so I can craft some black powder rounds for this. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions regarding this rifle, feel free to comment them down below. I'm more than happy to answer anything regarding this rifle. It's probably my favorite rifle in my collection at the moment, and the rarest. If you feel like this video deserves it and you like this rifle, leave the video a like. It shows the algorithm that more people like it and will recommend it to more people. Also, if you want to learn more about Nordic arms and history, consider subscribing. Until the next one, take care. Bye-bye.